I'm Jim Check with Kelowna Now.
And I'm Renee Merrifield.
And we're here, more and more and more of the same. Canadians under threat almost on a constant basis from either threats from the South with Donald Trump or even our own infighting and stuff like that that's going on. And we have a pro government still.
We have a pro government. We have a BC government that is not yet there. The two things that we've heard so far from Eby is that we are supposed to not travel to the US and not buy anything that's created in the US. That's our magical plan for BC. And we have the government now, federal government, starting to throw these bombs out that basically have us going back to COVID spending or COVID-like spending, which we know what that did for our economy.
That's
and
where that got
here. Exactly. That is exactly why we are right here. So that is the definition of insanity, to basically do exactly the same thing and expect a different result. So that is clearly not a plan. Now, you do see certain provincial leaders that have taken the forefront. We've got Danielle Smith, and we've been talking about her ad nauseum. This last week, we saw Wab Kinew come up and really start taking his place in space. We've got Scott Moe, who's definitely come out loud and proud, and then Doug Ford, who's calling an election to make sure that he's got the mandate necessary for him to move forward. Eby is nowhere to be found. He hasn't called his government back. I mean, they're not even getting back into the Legislative Assembly until the 18th, I believe. The budget doesn't drop on the normal legislative date. It drops the next week. So, what is he going to say in a throne speech? Like, we've overspent. We have no more money left. Our economy is going down, and I'm sorry. This is all we have for you. I have no idea what that throne speech is going to be like, or maybe the throne speech will be for us. But for whatever reason, we do not have a government that is activated right now, and that puts BC and British Columbians in a really precarious place in space.
I think one of the things that you bring up there that applies both to the BC NDP and the federal NDPs and the Liberal government is our reluctance to tap our natural resources. And then we had Devasi Capellas interviewing Francois, and then they're saying, "Oh, it's a different time. We're gonna go hard on resources.
It's a new chapter. It's a new chapter." I'm like, oh my chicken! That has got to be the most ridiculous thing you could say.
Eby hasn't even come out and said that yet, right? Like,
no.
There's still. And I signed up. I've never been aligned with any party. I did sign up for the Liberal. So I just wanted to see what they were putting out.
Yeah.
And the platform is exactly the same as what it was under Trudeau. Climate change. I can't remember. They're going to build a stronger economy. They have 10 years to build a stronger economy.
Yeah, I think we are going to see more of the same. I think this election is going to cement their place in history, and I hope that that Canadians look through the rabid spending and actually see that we need an economy. I think that one really good thing that's coming out of Trump's tariffs is that we're actually having the conversation right now as to why we have not invested in the infrastructure necessary to get our oil and gas or our natural resource sectors out of our country and to alternative trade partners. The reason that we sell our oil and gas at such a discount to the U.S. is because we can't get it out any other way.
We have no other bidders.
And so when you have a market of one, which is the U.S., they can tell us whatever price they want to spend on it. And that's what they've done in the past. That's what they're doing right now. And that's what they intend to do in the future. We have to invest in infrastructure. And the last prime minister that we had that was sounding the alarm bell and saying we have to do this was Stephen Harper. And he could not he had proposed 3 different pipe access points. The only one that's made it is the Trans Mountain. That Trans Mountain is doing about 1 million or just under 1 million barrels a day. We need more. We need it going east-west. We have to, start getting it out onto the east, out from the East Coast, and we absolutely need another one that will take it from Alberta to through BC.
That interview, I recommend everybody go watch that interview that Devasi Capellas of CTV did with Francois. It's really telling because she said, I interviewed, politicians from Greece, from Germany, and from Japan and all that. And they all want our LNG, and your government would not sell it to them. It said it was not viable. And here we are.
Yes. here we are. Here we are with the world in an energy crisis,
Yeah.
and Canada sitting on huge, vast amounts of natural resources, and we have done very little to actually get it to anyone other than the United States, which puts us in this very precarious position right now with a leader in Trump that that can really have his way with us. And I mean, I'd love to think optimistically and say, okay, well, he's got 18 months to really, push everything around. Then he's going to go into another election with Congress and Senate. So that's great. That will maybe shift the balance of power. He'll be a lame duck for the next 2 years, and then he'll be gone. Now, that's very optimistically. That still puts us in a very horrible position for the next 4 years.
Look what he's done in 7 days.
Look what he's done in 7 days, and look at the countries. Like you look at Colombia, and the threat of those tariffs, 25%, 50%, you accept my planes or else, and literally, okay, fine, we'll accept them.
Well, even more than that, we'll send the presidential plane to pick up the people.
Yeah, and I mean, that was the win for the Colombian president, in that he actually said, well, we're going to treat them not like criminals, we're going to treat them like our citizens. So, okay, yeah, I get it, but really, I mean, this man has no bounds. He's not looking for re-election at this point. And for those that are very scared about that, it would take a constitutional change to actually have a third term. And that's just virtually impossible. There hasn't been a constitutional change in many, many years.
I don't think that there's even talk of that. I think, that they're probably going to prime J.D. Vance is their second. And I mean, he is getting old too.
J.D. Vance?
No, Trump.
Like he's like 41 or 42.
No, I think J.D. Vance probably has a big political career in front of him.
Yeah.
You brought up something though, the pandemic.
And just if you haven't watched the dance on the inauguration ball between J.D. Vance and his wife, honestly, if you want to see a couple in love, that was like what movies are made of. That was such a beautiful, beautiful moment.
Yeah, definitely. And he comes from like a really poor upbringing too, and a lot of challenges. I mean, he wrote a book that's kind of what elevated him to where he is today. You brought up something, that pandemic level spending, and it's been put out there by a publication saying that is another buy to buy the time for an October election to the NDP. Do you think that Jagmeet Singh would actually sell out Canada and basically light the house on fire just for?
I don't think Jagmeet is going to give that amount of time in the polls. When you see your trajectory going down, that is when you stop the bleed, stop the hemorrhage. If he was starting to see the NDP's numbers going up, now we've seen a little bit of a blip in the Liberal numbers going up.
At the expense of the NDP.
At the expense of the NDP, exactly. Mm-hmm. So that would bode very well, I think, to still see a spring election. My speculation is that they're going to try and make this the election issue, that the Conservatives are not for the Canadian people, and that they'll put forward the spending package. That's what will be on the table for the confidence vote. And when it gets voted down, they'll say, look, we were trying to really support the Canadian people. For those of you that are listening right now, this is the worst idea that you could possibly imagine. If you really care about the Canadian people, you create an economic plan that basically focuses on infrastructure, on building more infrastructure, on activating the natural resource sector. You signal to the rest of the world that you are open for business. You get your natural, your minerals, your critical minerals out of the borders. You say to Trump, fine, put tariffs on. It's okay. We're going to go outside of our borders. We have 2 other borders that we can be selling from, the East and the West. Let's start doing that. And for a very, a smart government.
We should do that regardless.
Is absolutely unequivocally. But in the middle of an economic downturn, that's what you're going to do, not tell people that they can sit on EI and do nothing.
We should do that regardless. Even if he gives us a sweetheart deal and says we'll give you 10% more, we should say we still need to explore other markets.
Agreed, 100%. The other thing, though, that we have to figure out is the things that Trump is asking for are not unrealistic and are not, so exceptional. To stop fentanyl going through. I don't know if you saw the news on the largest fentanyl bust in international, history, when the fentanyl coming from the Vancouver port arrived in Australia. Google the story; it's absolutely horrific. 55 million doses of fentanyl arrived into Australia. Thank goodness they have better port security than we do. and actually caught it. But a horrible amount of fentanyl coming out of Canada right now and seeping into the States. We need to stop that and block it. And the other thing is that our border needs to be tightened up. People walk across it. I mean, the news story this morning was, BC, shuts down those that want to hike across the West Coast Trail from the U.S.
That's the news story,
into BC. And I was thinking to myself, oh, that's all you need to do is just hike the West Coast Trail. Now, some of us aren't really, physically fit enough to do it, but honestly, that's how ridiculous our border patrol is.
Holly Doan, Blackhawks put out a story and said the RCMP are only flying their helicopters on weekdays up till 4 p.m.
Do you know what I mean? So, for all the criminals out there, or anyone who would like to illegally cross the border, the weekends or after 4 p.m. is your time.
And so now they're going to fix that. And our military is at abysmal numbers.
Yes.
And we're at 52,000. I think we should be at 78 or something. And that's still low compared to other countries. And they tried to do a program. This is again out of Blackhawks. Tried to do a program to get immigrants to sign up for the military, and I think they got about 110. And they probably spent a ton of money doing this. So Justin Trudeau, in 10 years, said that Canada is a post-national state. Now wants to wrap the flag around the Liberals. Basically ignored our military. Our borders are weaker, and we have a fentanyl crisis. And they want 4 more years. I just don't know how. I guess we should talk about the people that are running, that say they want to take the leadership reins, and who are these candidates a little bit. We've got the front runner, obviously, Mark Carney, which is basically they're trying to coronate him.
It's a coronation for him, absolutely. He's got the money, he's got the party power.
All the cabinet ministers are lining up behind him.
And obviously he's got the cabinet ministers.
Yeah, and then they're saying, he says in his pitches that he's the agent of change, but it's the same people. How can you be the agent of change if you're running the same group of people? And then Chrystia Freeland, and it looks like they're kind of like throwing her under the bus as they move along. She's kind of like the sacrificial lamb, it looks like, for the the Carney campaign. And then there's a couple they kicked out.
Yeah.
Chandra Arya, for some.
We don't know why.
Right, and they said he's an unacceptable candidate, or manifestly unfit, but he's okay as an MP.
He's
that makes
mystery.
No sense.
It's a baffler.
And then Ruby Dalla is running, and she got accepted, and she says, as a Liberal, she says that she's going to kick out every illegal immigrant.
Yeah, speaking as an immigrant herself, but I do understand the difference there. I mean, those that have come legally and through legal channels, it's a difficult road. It's not an easy road, and so to say we need to get rid of the illegals, I think is definitely a step in the right direction. And I also think like the voice that is kind of cracking through the Liberal leadership race right now is really Poilievre with his interviews. He speaks with clarity. He speaks with a plan. He speaks with a lot of strength and really juxtaposed to any of these others. He's really coming out still as the leader. I saw a post the other day that had all the accolades of Mark Carney and then had the accolades of Pierre Poilievre, and it was like 4 to like 40, in terms of like Order of Canada. And I thought to myself, yeah, but as an MP, you actually can't do any of those other things. Like you can't win the Order of Canada if you're an MP, and you can't, you can't sit on other boards. You can't sit on it. Like, so it was a little bit of an unfair comparison, but then you look at who's delivering the best plan right now. Carney in interviews won't even state what he's planning for carbon tax, or won't even state.
You mean the 2-minute interviews that he's given? Because he hasn't. So. I mean, here's a great kind of like how it's playing out in the U.S. Biden and Harris really didn't do a lot of interviews. Trump is omnipresent, like he's everywhere. Like, I mean, and so is Vance. They're doing interviews. They're taking questions all the time, and it's kind of like they're allowing themselves to be held accountable. And maybe Trump's got a big ego, and maybe he likes standing in front of the podium. But at least you're getting the answers from him. In Canada, Poilievre seems to be doing interviews. Freeland's done a few interviews, but where's Justin Trudeau with an interview? After all he's done, where's Justin Trudeau with an interview other than going to the United States and doing an interview? And where's Mark Carney sitting down and telling us this plan that he has that's different, the man of change?
Yeah, the man of change aspect. I question the Liberals come out with this plan for this big spending package that, assuming part of it that yeah, it's a regulatory thing. They could just strike it with a pen. But some of that spending is going to be legislative, and so it is going to need to go through the House. I'm looking at that saying, okay, but who's the new leader, and what if they don't approve it? And then, my mind goes to, well, Chrystia Freeland, she'd have access to all of that, so she would approve it, I guess. And then there's Mark Carney, and it's like, well, yeah, he's probably got the ear of those, and there's already, been talks, and he's saying, let's put this out and get this ready. But then I'm thinking, well, then he's not an outsider. if he has that much pull to actually get this package together, then there's no way he's an outsider. He's truly already embedded inside of the Liberals. So for me, I'm looking at these candidates, and there isn't one of them that really is going to change the trajectory for where the Liberals have been going, and they're certainly not going to change Canada's trajectory. I think the scariest thing is that now they're claiming to be changing the chapter in a book, and that's just simply
Turning
not
the
true.
page. Heard that
Yeah.
before. The $250 check that they promised Canadians is gone.
Yeah,
And,
but so
again,
is the
these-
$1,000 from Evie. So
That's what I mean. So all these promises, just like pandemic level spending and that, which will put us in the worst spot, they don't deliver on them anyway.
No. And, I was sitting around my dinner table. I actually was talking with some of my kids, and one of them actually said, well, I'm thinking about voting NDP this last election because they're going to give me $1,000 and hold my rent to a certain threshold. And I was like, okay, let's talk about this. But, I like, those are the trinkets, right? And it's like, yeah, is that $1,000 going to come? No, because we are in a horrible deficit spending, largely because Evie's there. And our taxation, our corporate taxes are way down, and they will continue to be. And that's one thing, like right now, having this lame duck government federally, not having a strong, economic government right now in BC. Honestly, Kelowna is going to hurt for a while. I mean, we're going to see more businesses closing. I know we talked about, recently about the small businesses closing. We're going to see more of those. And we're also going to see more businesses going south because they simply can, have better economic scale down south and better economic opportunities than they do here in Canada.
Amazon in Quebec, PV Mart just pulled out. There's a few there's a long list of it actually. This is one thing that I think maybe you can help explain to Canadians that I don't think a lot of people are really aware of how it works. How does the Senate work? And we're hearing Trudeau is going to appoint another 10 senators, and he's going to appoint. He's already resigned basically, but he's still using his power to appoint 10 more senators, which is already a Liberal loaded kind of Senate.
It is, and this will be a legacy for sure. Senators are not elected; they are appointed. Senators are allowed to remain a senator until they are 75 years old, is the mandated retirement age. So there's a lot of lifers in that Senate. Our laws have to go through the Senate. They have to be approved by the Senate. But for the most part, it tends to be a rubber stamp rather than a rigorous process. There have been a couple of bills that we've seen some amendments made to.
Like a kickback or whatever.
Yeah, where the Senate says we're not satisfied with this, push it back. Is it a rigorous job? Yes. I think there are those senators that treat it with the amount of reverence that it should be treated with and the amount of respect. I think there are others that literally are collecting a paycheck and getting their expenses paid, maybe earning some air miles with Aeroplan, etc. But it was intended when it was set up to be this checks and balances to those that were elected. What it's turned into now is just a little bit of cronyism and a little bit of trying to get your wedge in before you leave, and that's what Trudeau has vowed to do. The irony here is that he couldn't get justices appointed, and there was like so many open vacancy spots in the Supreme Court across Canada, and yet he's going to fill these Senate seats in the next 2 months. So very disappointing, but not unexpected.
Yeah, and it just seems like like if he's already resigned, why is he still exercising, authority over a candidate that may, alter kind of like our political direction.
Yeah, and there have been prime ministers, Harper being one of them, that really wanted to reform the Senate and change it into a more rigorous body. But there just isn't the political appetite for that. Without the political appetite, it's going to be very difficult for any prime minister to do as such. So, we'll see. But right now, we've got a lame duck prime minister that's basically using whatever power they have to imprint where they want to go with things.
The question I would ask the Liberal leadership candidates is, will you call an election as your first act when government is back in session? And I don't think anybody's asked that question, because I think that's an important question. That I believe Ruby would probably call it based on what else she said. But like, I am sure Carney is trying to buy time, because that's what's happening in the back end of it. And then, like Chrystia Freeland is basically backpedaling on everything that they put out there, the capital gains tax, the carbon tax, and the GST. She called it a gimmick.
Yeah. Everything that she's already voted for, like 50 times.
And it's the same group. I mean, it's even Francois, I can't remember, Champagne, I think is like saying it's like it's a partnership already. They haven't even formed government yet, and with a new leader, and it's already a partnership. And they're campaigning together. And Mark Miller came out yesterday, supporting him. And Mark Miller's connected to Carney as well. There's a lot of stuff going
on.
and
Mark, doing their dialing the Liberals.
And then this morning I saw Gerald Butts is now heading up the campaign for Mark Carney.
Oh yeah, he's been there the whole time. Yeah,
but now he's more public, though, right?
Yeah, that was one of the signals actually that was who the Liberal Party insiders had chosen as their heir apparent. Was where the power center sort of shifted.
And they're part of that Eurasia group, and his wife is part of it as well. And then it seems like it's more of a this post-nationalist state that we're looking at.
Yeah, it's truly more of the same. Carney, I expected that he would come out with kind of something different. I haven't seen it yet. I don't know if he's going to, if he's going to give Canadians something hopeful. I don't see that right now. I don't see I don't see the direction right now. It's just basically, I want to win for the Liberal Party, and then we'll figure it out from there. So, I mean, is he going to give away all of his election, campaign platform? No, that would give Pierre too much time. But Pierre doesn't need it. Pierre doesn't need his platform because Pierre is already charging. He's got everyone saying build the houses, axe the tax, and stop the crime. Like, he's already got everyone singing the mantra. So I don't see where Carney is going to actually move in. He has not said anything about public safety or crime. He has not said anything about, the carbon tax as of yet. He said plans coming. He hasn't, so what is he actually going to do? I don't know. Right now he's I guess, trying to win a beauty pageant.
So I registered for the Liberal Party of Canada, and this is what I got. I got an email back that says, and it seems like that this would come from the leader, but that what they're going to do as the Liberal team is going to lower the cost of living, accelerate our fight against climate change, grow a stronger economy, strengthen our public health care system, and make our communities safer. If we graded them on all those things, first of all, they're all generalities, right? Yeah. There's no like get rid of the tax. There's just it's just generalities. And if you graded them on that, and I would ask you as a viewer out there, go ahead and grade them yourself, right? Has the cost of living gone down in 10 years? Has even all the actions they've taken for climate change?
Our cost of living has gone up, and our GDP per capita has gone way down.
And then even if we look at all the stuff they've done with the carbon tax, the compounding carbon tax, our emissions haven't gone down.
No, they have not. They've continually rise.
Grow a stronger economy. You just talked about it.
Yep.
It's gone down. Our public healthcare system, we've had people die in the waiting room.
Yeah, and the one big case that went all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada was the Brian Day case. And even in there, when you read the judgment, it is damning. When you look at the Canadian healthcare system, it basically says, yes, people die on wait lists. Yes, it is a way that we limit the amount of we limit spending, thus we limit the amount of treatment that can be offered to Canadians. Like when you read that, it is horrible, like absolutely horrible. And the fact that more has not been said about what the judges found in that particular case, it's we really need to go back and kind of excise some of those tidbits out and say, like, are we as Canadians okay with this? Because I don't want to die on wait lists. I know, I personally know friends, and not even, this is not wealthy friends, it's not like, but are going to the US for treatment because they've been told that they are going to have,
Well, even the BC government sending people there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Are we ever?
And 37% of Canadians don't have access to a family doctor. Hard to hide from that stat.
Totally.
Hard to hide from that stat.
Yeah. So, we have a healthcare system that is failing. So if you were to grade the current government on that, it's a failing. It's a failing. So, voting and elections are not won or lost on who gives us the most hope. No, they're won or lost on how we want to change. It's usually a vote against, not a vote for. In this particular case, I can't see the Canadian public wanting to give more time to this government.
Making our communities safer. We can bring up tons of stories, including the
Vancouver.
But I would even say in Ontario when they said, leave your keys at the front door, so when they break into your house, they can get your keys easier, right?
Yeah. It's horrific.
That's the advice given to people. And I think we took over from the United States, and one of the stats was, and one of the more horrific stats was that Canada leads the U.S., I think, in per capita for homicide.
Yeah, it's very scary out there. Even with some of the busts that have been going on, on the one hand, I'm like, well, maybe we're better organized and we're actually getting the criminals now. But on the other hand, I'm like, man, I just see more criminal takedowns and activity happening on our streets. So it's a very uneasy time right now, uneasy time. But you see Ken Sim, who basically said, we're not going to accept anything more for the downtown east side. I loved the mayor of Surrey, Brenda Locke. I loved her response. Oh, really? You guys have been begging for more money, more services, everything to go to the downtown east side. She's like, send it over to Surrey. We'd love some of that investment and some of those dollars to actually help our social services. But the reality is that it hasn't worked. If we want to do a test case for what works and what doesn't, just look at the downtown east side of Vancouver, and to really see it has not worked. All of this money, all of this spending, to the tune of $5 billion. A white paper that was done 2 years ago found that $5 billion was being spent annually between the nonprofits and the for-profit agencies and government agencies that were down there. To what? To have more homeless, to have more street entrenched, to have more drugs, to have more crime. I don't know what other test case we actually require.
David Evy's been able to hide under the cover of all the turmoil that's going on at a federal level. But one of the things John Rustad came out with, I think it was yesterday or it might have been this morning, he wants the EV mandate scrapped, and he wants all the EV credits scrapped. And that is based on Donald Trump there. They're scrapping the EV mandates and all those credits. And the automakers there breathe a sigh of relief. And then the automakers in Ontario now are asking for the same thing. And if they don't scrap these mandates, and the Americans have scrapped it, it would be really tough for auto manufacturers to even survive in Canada. And Stellantis has already said, we're leaving.
Yeah. We actually already have, a very similar dynamic in that Alberta doesn't have the EV mandates that we have. So, you can, as of 2026, you could just cross the border, buy your vehicle in Alberta and register it here in BC. In talking with the New Dealers Association, they definitely are seeing dealerships that simply are throwing their hands up saying, we're not going to be able to sell enough vehicles. There isn't enough demand for EVs here in BC. And largely because we don't have the infrastructure. And I can tell you just anecdotally a story where we're working right now on a project that is the Merritt Visitor Center, and everything is ready to go. We've got, basically the government's all at the table. We've got 5 First Nations. We've got, 2 development partners. Like literally everyone is sitting there ready to go. And we are waiting on BC Hydro, because BC Hydro is trying to figure out how to electrify not only the site, but we want an EV charging station because it is such a visitor's stop off. between Hope and West Kelowna. And the issue is that in storms, in in any sort of tumult, or if the Coquihalla gets shut down for any reason, that is where someone's going to need to get charged up. And so we're trying to do the right thing. We're trying to get this EV charging station going. And BC Hydro is simply, way behind the eight ball. Our application's been in for 4 years, and we still do not have a plan. I mean, we're very hopeful. We keep sounding the alarm bell. We keep getting new designers, so we're hopeful that this is the one. But we don't have enough electricity. We don't have enough electricity. We're still importing 30% of our electricity from Alberta and from Washington. Oh, wait. Who use coal and LNG to actually create it. And we also don't have, the infrastructure for the EVs. So are we really going to get everyone converting 90% of all of our new cars to EVs? It's just not possible.
I think
an artificial imposition from government is going to raise costs through the roof. We're going to see car dealerships going under, and we're going to see people going to Alberta, which is where the economic generator will then become.
So yeah, the auto manufacturing in Canada is about just under 2%. That's the world auto manufacturing. But I can almost tell you without a doubt that they will leave Canada, even the ones that are there, the Fords and the GMs that are left. Stellantis has already said it's leaving.
Yeah.
If they have to compete in an uncompetitive environment, totally. that the Americans across the street can do it a lot cheaper, and they can easily just move a factory, and they've done that in the past. So I think that in itself, if Doug Ford wants to keep manufacturing, because we don't have any out east, it's Ontario. If they want to keep any auto manufacturing, they need to take a really hard look at it and let people choose what they want to drive. And this has always been the case. Even though I'm a proponent for EVs, people should have the right to choose and not be forced to do anything. And if we look at the EV credit from the feds, they said, "Oh, we're going to run out of money." And the next day, they said, "Oh yeah, we don't have any money." Did they look in the cupboards? No.
Yeah, and we're going to see more and more of that. The market should have the ability to decide. And, in order to have economic prosperity, you have to have inexpensive energy. Relegating everyone to one energy source, which is electricity, is great if you have, a surplus, but we don't right now. So we need to be an and story, not an either or story. And the EV mandate was an artificial imposition of government bureaucracy and government legislation that I think is going to fail. And really, capitalism is great at innovating. They will find ways to make things less expensive. And already we've seen, solar coming down in the cost, and we will continue to see that coming down as we innovate and innovate and innovate. But if you don't let the market decide, that's going to stay expensive, and it's going to stay out of reach of the general public, and we're going to see a more impoverished nation.
Yeah, I think we'll close it off here. But the one thing that I would like to see from any government that comes in is accountability. And I think this Green New Deal and all these things that they did is there a lot of money went out where we don't know where it ended up. And that, I think all that needs to be disclosed. Who took the money? There's allegations that Stephen Gibault, a couple $100 million. We need to get that cleared up. He should want to clear that up himself. He should want to clear up any allegations like that.
And I don't know about the legislation that would be required, but my hope is that if we get a change in government and we see a conservative federal government, hopefully some of that will come to light. Hopefully some of that will be revealed. And I do hope for accountability. I heard Justin Trudeau talking about X this morning, and how it could be, it could artificially influence, and how we need to clamp down on it. I'm sitting there just going, that's what he wants to talk about right now. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's what we need the free speech, we need the media to shift, and we need to see the reins kind of pulled off, and we need to see the new day of where accountability and media are really doing the stories that matter to people, and educating them in where we need to go.
I can tell you right now, Bill C-18 did nothing to help media, especially independent media. No. It's crushed it, and I can show you the stock charts of Chorus, which is global, and the stock charts of even Glacier, which is locally is Castanet. I can show you all those stock charts, and I can tell you right now, it's definitely not helped us. Bill C-18 needs to be repealed. Media should be independent and free, and not living off the handouts from the government, and it should not interfere with media if we want to have a strong media in Canada.
Agreed. I'll let you have the last word on
There
that
you go.
one.
With that said, we do thank you for watching Kelowna Now. We're here every week with Renee on Tuesdays, and it's great that she's putting in her time. She knows so much about government as an insider.
Yeah, literally for
An
4 years,
insider.
yeah.
And we're great to have her, be able to explain things like the Senate and different things to us, and also to kind of like give us, some insight into who's running and which policies are better for Canada. And we all know that our biggest asset, I think nobody, even the Liberals are saying it now, our biggest asset, our beast in the world is our natural resources, and we need to unleash the beast.
We should be an energy giant, and all things energy. My pitch has always been, and even inside the BC United was really about being all things energy and using our natural resource sector to propel our innovation for renewables forward. We should be leading the charge, and instead we are falling far behind. So,
energy is a basic human necessity. It's in everything we do every day, and the Liberals have taxed it like it's a luxury.
Agreed.
And with that said, we do thank you for watching Kelowna Now. Unleash the beast.
Unleash the beast.